if our concern is violent crime, if our concern is places like Chicago, like Baltimore, that have dealt with huge surges in crime, shouldn't we be looking at the things that are actually driving that trend? For example, the war on drugs, which is something that Attorney General Sessions is doubling down on.
Can't we do both?
I was going to say, does it have to be isolated?
Well, let's talk about how often the president. Let's talk about how often the president has talked about criminal justice reform. Let's talk about how often the president has actually talked about
Camille,
meaningful improvements in the way that we're prosecuting the drug war.
You can't say it's criminal justice reform or
Theoretically,
immigration.
no.
He hasn't talked about these
but in the Trump administration,
but he didn't run on criminal justice reform, right?
Okay, so we wouldn't, if you're looking at drug gang violence, a way better way of dealing with that would be ending the drug war. It really is that simple. If you look at alcohol, which is something that, you know, it makes people angry, violent, it's fatal, it can kill people. There's a reason why there's not like Maker's Mark versus Jack Daniels knife fights in the streets. It's because there's not this underground market for it. And the jail system, people go in and out, in and out, in and out. It's not a deterrent.
We have an update. They are now voting on the Sanctuary Cities piece of legislation. As we speak, when we have that number, we will bring it to you. Kat, I hear you, and I hear the impassion in your voice, but the issue is it's not an either or. We know that, right? And so when we talk about, just from a purely criminal, punitive standpoint, if you break the law, particularly in a violent way that results in a felony, why on earth would we have anything other than a very aggressive penalty for that when you come back over here? I can't understand.
I don't have a problem with Kate's law. I don't think it's a bad law. I certainly don't feel any sympathy for the people who commit these crimes. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I think that we should focus on big picture solutions that will actually solve the problem.
At the exclusion of this issue, though?
I'm saying I don't.
That's like saying we're not going to enforce robbery because we're going to focus on murder and rape. Guess what? Enforce all of them.
Yeah, I think that's a false equivalence that you're drawing there.
How is that?
Here's the fundamental reason that's the case, because Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General of the United States, has actually been doubling down on the drug war. He has actually been instituting policies.
You guys are talking about a whole separate policy.
You can't say I'm wrong and then say, oh, by the way, Sessions is wrong.
No, actually, I'm giving you the reason why this is.
I'm going to blow your mind. I agree with you on criminal justice reform.
I do too.
Okay? Great. But I also think Kate's law, as a mandatory must pass, unequivocally has to go through to keep the country safer.
I understand the argument you're making. My argument, just to be clear, is that in a narrow sense, this particular law is not going to have a dramatic impact on crime.
In your opinion,
there are things that the president could do. I have seen zero analysis of this that suggests there is a wave of immigrant-driven violent crime.
I don't think anybody's talking about a wave, though. I think we're talking about instances necessarily. I think we're talking about instances where we know for fact, right, Camille?
Sure.
People have been raped, murdered, killed. That happens at the hands of people that are not here legally. We know that, right?
Sure.
So if there's something we can do legislatively that will make that less likely, shouldn't we do it?
One wonders if this law will accomplish that.
I don't wonder it. I know that. I know that.
The reality is, you talk about Sessions. We're taking these gangs off the streets, including Long Island and everything else here. These are vicious, vicious gangs. Now, do you think they're going to stay on the other side of the border? The moment they get a chance, they'll be back here again. And we need to basically have more than just civil things to take care of these people. And every law enforcement person in the world wants this. And I've been around the game a long, long time because I'm an old man here. We've been fighting the drug war since the Reagan days. It's a very complicated thing. And certainly it's an underlying part of all of this. But you've got to take them step by step, and these two bills are very important.
I just don't think you can say because we need criminal justice reform, we shouldn't have Kate's law. That's a false. You want to talk about a false equivalent?
I never said that.
There you have it.
Yeah, that's.
When did I say that?
I don't think that's the argument I'm making. If perhaps I'm not being clear, the narrow argument is we aren't actually talking about those other important reforms. The president has been beating this drum relentlessly while pursuing other policies that are actually making the drug war worse.
Do you think Kate's law has merit and should pass?
I think the legislation could have merit if, in fact, it were clear that this was a unique problem that needed to be addressed. I'm not sure that there are many violent offenders that are being...
Is there a quota, though, that we have to get
Nobody
to?
We actually
have recidivism rates in this country that are quite high as well. Would you suggest that we should pass a federal law that extends the prison stay of every violent offender by 5 years in order to try to preemptively prevent crime?
I don't believe in preemptively
I don't think that makes a great deal of sense.
Not at all. But what
that's precisely what this law is suggesting.
No, I would say no. It's once you can, because I've seen it, right? I've seen it. Once you commit a violent crime in this country, and I know this because I've had to counsel my clients. Listen, if we take this plea deal, right?
Sure.
One of the consequences is going to be it's going to adversely affect your immigration status. And they understand and say, Ms. Williams, I get it. I'm willing to plead guilty. So we move forward along that. You don't then get to say, never mind, I want to come back to the United States and whatever happens, happens. I don't think that is the advantage of anybody here. And I agree with you, by the way, both of you, on criminal justice reform. Politically speaking, though, that's not what this president ran off of. So I wouldn't really expect that.
It's just not one or the other. I would agree with you that if you had criminal justice reform, you might be more effective in implementing laws like case law.
A quick update. It appears that this has passed. That's what we're hearing at this point.
This is the first one.
This is the first one.
This is
not case. This is sanctuary cities. Yes.
That was the tougher hurdle of this.
I would agree.
Eric, I'm not saying theoretically that you can't have both. I don't think Camille is saying that either. What I'm saying, what I think Camille is also saying, is that in this administration, it's very clear that that's not going to be the approach.
That's not the agenda of this administration.
That's true. That's not even the agenda of this segment.
All you know is
the segment was to discuss the merits of Kate's Law and sanctuary city, and you're bringing in an attack on the Trump dealing with.
I'm using my critical thinking skills to provide alternate solutions.
You're mixing the. I mean, this is about.
But why does it have to be an alternate solution?
Well, I think ostensibly this is supposed to be about reducing violent crime, and that's the reason I introduced this, because I think this could be much more dramatic.
Maybe that's what we're having here is a difference of way we're seeing. I'm not seeing this as a solution for reducing violent crime. I'm seeing it as a clear follow-through step that says when you commit a violent felony in this country, you don't get to come back. It's very simple.
Equally as important, you have to get away from the civil. If you're going to put people out of the country because they've been here illegally and they keep coming back, you have to move it from civil to a criminal. You're just not going to be able to, you're never going to stop the illegals coming across the border. And I think the bottom line, if you're going to have the whole comprehensive and go under Trump, this law was put in existence before Trump started running. He picked this ball up and talked about it as a candidate, and he wants to implement it. But there's a lot of other things in criminal justice he's going to do in the 4 years or 8 years that he's there.
Well, certainly we hope that we will see that too. So we'll keep you posted, certainly, on Kate's Law. That should be coming up soon.